Okay. Title of this essay is Cause and Effect is not actual, it is conceptual. Why cause and effect is purely a human cognitive notion used to organize what man observes and is not a force which governs how material reality interacts. This will be a short post, relatively. And it goes like this. Cause and effect are mutually exclusive ideas. That is, what is the cause cannot also simultaneously be the effect. And what is the effect cannot also be the cause. Each notion has an absolute definition which must remain consistent in order for cause and effect, quote unquote, to have any meaning in the first place. At the same time, each notion depends on the other for its value and relevancy. What this means is that the cause is not actually a cause without an effect. There is no such thing as a cause with no effect, by definition, and the converse is also true. So in other words, each notion obtains its value and meaning as a direct function of the other. For instance, a cause is only able to be defined as a cause and observed as a cause via the effect, which makes the cause merely a direct extension of the effect, which I have already explained must be absolute, i.e. the effect is absolutely and utterly the effect. It cannot simultaneously be a cause, again, by definition. And this renders any actual distinction between cause and effect impossible. The distinction is purely conceptual, a product of the human capacity to conceptualize what he or she observes. The converse, naturally, would also be true. An effect is only able to be defined and observed and identified as an effect via the cause, its value and relevancy a function of the cause, therefore making the effect merely a direct extension of the cause, and the cause must be absolute, i.e. a cause cannot simultaneously be an effect. This renders any actual distinction between cause and effect impossible. Such a distinction can only be made conceptually, as a product of the human conceptualizing brain, which is uniquely able to organize the environment in such a way. And from here you can see why the title of this article makes sense. Cause and effect are both everything, i.e. absolutes, which must possess a consistent and ineluctable definition at any given moment, and nothing, i.e. each one deriving its value and relevancy as a direct function of the other, rendering each one a direct extension of the other, thereby making moot both concepts altogether. Everything and nothing are mutually exclusive, which means that everything and nothing cannot possibly be the existential state of any object or force in question. The point being is that cause and effect are distinct absolute concepts. They are not interrelated because they are mutually exclusive. And yet at the same time, the cause isn't a cause without an effect, by definition. An effect cannot be an effect without a cause. So what I'm attempting to do is render this notion as the abstract concept that it is. People sometimes get confused about the forces which govern their reality. And they confuse conceptual notions, which are strictly used by man as tools to organize his environment to his own benefit. They confuse the concepts with some kind of external causal force, cause and effect, as a force which exists outside of man. Cause and effect explains how the Big Bang creates the universe, creates worlds, creates life, creates people. It's cause and effect. And this is why this article I include in the series, an ongoing series on arguing with atheists. Because atheists are very quick to appeal to conceptual notions as having causal power. Laws of physics, which govern concepts like cause and effects, chance and probability, as somehow being having some sort of rational inclusion into a worldview or an existential philosophy. None of these things are true. We need to make a distinction between what is the true nature of material reality, which is in a sense infinite, and infinite is, everything infinitely is itself, and then the concepts human beings use to organize that infinite is of everything they observe into a construct or into a process which can be used to facilitate man's own existence, his own pleasure, his own comfort, his own propagation, and affirm himself as the standard of morality and truth. Atheists can't possibly do that because at the end of the day, they functionally assume that man is a product of unconscious laws of nature, cause and effect, chance, probability, things of that nature. And somehow these unconscious mechanisms or machinations outside of him have produced consciousness. And so by going after things like cause and effect, and my next video on chance, I'm hoping to dismantle the idea that you can argue an efficacious reality, an efficacious philosophy, by appealing to ideas like laws of physics, by appealing to evolutionary processes, things of that nature, which employ strictly non-existent conceptual abstractions like cause and effect as self-evident proof of their own efficacy, of the rational nature of their usage in formulating a idea of reality, an existential definition for man. And so that's why I'm going after cause and effect. There's a difference between explaining the true nature of material reality and the conceptualized nature, and we often get those things confused, and one of the ways we get them confused is by cause and effect. Cause and effect are not actual, is not actual. It is a concept. It doesn't really present itself as an underlying fundamental law or process of material reality. And this article is proving that. It's irrational. And again, cause is absolute, effect is absolute. They're mutually exclusive, and yet one doesn't exist without the other. It's a paradox that can only be reconciled when we understand that these are concepts. These are not forces of nature, cause and effect. So the point is to show that cause and effect is not an actuality. Oh, sorry. Move back up. I jumped ahead a little bit. To write the equation mathematically, everything is 1 and nothing is 0. 1 times 0 equals 0. The product of both cause and effect separately is 0. And thus when you couple them together as cause and effect, or rather cause plus effect, in order to complete the notion, you get presented abstractly 0 plus 0, which of course equals 0. That's a little bit difficult to explain, but I'm basically trying to show that when you have cause as absolutely everything, but it can be nothing without the inclusion of its polar opposite effect, you effectively are trying to multiply an absolute is with an absolute nothing. So you're essentially saying cause is both cause and not cause at the same time. It is cause, but it's not really cause unless you include the mutual exclusivity of effect. So essentially, you are saying cause both is and is not. It's 1 times 0, which equals 0. So if you have cause 0 plus effect 0, you're going to get 0. So it has zero chance of actually existing. It has 0 chance of having any force or causal power. Its causal properties, cause and effect, its causal properties on material reality are, in fact, 0. And you can express that mathematically, which I know will please the atheists and physicists who tend to worship at the throne of... well, now I'm getting snarky. I don't want to get snarky. That's not the point. The point is to show that cause and effect is not an actuality. It's not a causal force which somehow, outside of man's conceptualizing brain, and therefore his life, exists as some actual, tangible, efficacious, objective reality and causal power. But rather, the material universe is what it is, and it is a singularity. Not ruled by laws of nature or other forces which are in reality human-derived concepts much like cause and effect. And another one of my favorite punching bags, chance, which we will look at later. I wrote an essay today on chance. The material universe being an infinite singularity makes all objects within it likewise infinite singularities, parsed and given meaning and relevancy and truth by those who possess observation, coupled with an innate ability to make a conceptual distinction between self and other or not self. What other objects or agents are observed to be not self, and thus truth is a function of the truly self-aware agent, which of course is God and man. Obviously, I'm not an atheist. I think atheism is the corollary to religious mysticism. It is merely Platonism using different. It's Platonist Gnosticism using different terminology, different vocabulary words. It's the flip side of the coin. It's the flip side of the coin to the religious mysticism that atheists pretend or ignorantly despise. If they truly understood the nature of their own belief system, they wouldn't be so quick to judge the religious systems that they do. So when I say the self-aware agent, I mean God and man. I believe in God. I believe that you can make a rational argument that God must exist in order for anything to exist. Science will never be able to answer science will never be able to reconcile a material universe without God. It's just a fact, because every material object boils down to infinity. You can't parse what is to its essence, to its end. If you take a red rubber ball and you cut it down and you continue to cut it down, you will never arrive at a particle which has an end, because what is cannot be a function of what is not. There can't be an end to what is, because is absolute. This is just reason. This is just, I don't want to say remedial logic, that's a little bit harsh, but a little bit of thinking, or a lot of thinking, depending on how difficult the concepts are to you. But at any rate, it's not something that people can't understand. Is an absolute. So if something is, it can't be parsed down to a component which has an end. Because what you're effectively saying is that what is a function of what is not. That it is itself as a function of empty space, which is nothing. And again, what is can't be a function of what is not, because non-existence or absence is mutually exclusive to presence, or the is of an object. So God is an agent, man is an agent. These things are rationally provable. I don't care if you're an atheist or not. There is no rational explanation for the existence of anything outside God. We'll get to that later. He who is able to know and define self as self is the standard of truth for all which is observed, and is likewise he who gives value to everything in the universe and is the most valuable. Reason thus demands that all castes and hierarchies and distinctions of all sorts must inevitably crumble under the weight of infinite individual human worth, because these castes and hierarchies and distinctions are not actual, they are conceptual. Therefore, all human beings can only be judged according to two things: their own self-ascribed values, and how they wish to freely exchange those values as a function of their individual attributes and desires, excepting, of course, the decidedly irrational desire to exploit and violate a fellow human being or a god. In this sense, then, one having judged has not been in the least judgmental. So we judge correctly, we judge the universe, we judge material reality, we judge it according to reason, we judge it according to the absolute standard of truth, which must be the individual human being. He who is self-aware and is aware of self must be the plumb line for morality and truth. We judge these things rationally. In that sense, we do not judge human beings. We do not judge human beings according to a conceptual hierarchy of value that somehow exists in the cosmic ether, or the spiritual and mystic realm of physical law, or religious caste systems, or religious otherworldly paradigms. We rightly and rationally judge the human being, the individual human being, ourselves and other human beings, as being existentially and morally equal, and therefore we do not judge other people except when they deny their own self by directly violating us. The motive behind these videos is to dismantle atheism as any kind of a legitimate philosophy, because it is not. It is mysticism in disguise. It is mysticism disguised as rational thinking. Science as a philosophy is mysticism disguised as rational thinking. And the other reason for these videos is to promote the idea that the human individual is the standard of truth. There is no other rational standard of truth except the self of individual man. Because anything outside of man automatically subjugates man to itself, which makes man's self, his individual identity, and his awareness of self utterly irrational. So having said all of that, I will bid you good night, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you for your time. Any of you, whomever of you, one of you, 100 of you, however many, I really appreciate you watching, even if it's just one. I appreciate your time. One is the essence of is. One is the metaphysical primary of human existence. It is the singularity of man. I have no problem with only one person watching this video. Everyone's an individual, and the individualism is infinite. And so if I reach one, that's great. And I really appreciate you guys, you guy or girl, gal, lady, gentleman, watching and taking your time to do that. Have a great night. Bye-bye.